everyone, how's it going? It's Scott here from CanGeek Games and Collectibles. Welcome as always to the CanGeek Games and Collectibles YouTube channel and the CanGeek Facebook page. This is episode 8 of As Fate Would Have It. I'm once again joined by Anthony, Chris, and Greg. We are going to quickly recap where we left off last week, and then we're going to jump right into this. So a very, very quick recap. Folks, last week you stormed Clint Dufresne's warehouse. Heinrich and Maya, you went on a rampage through the warehouse looking for this amulet, which you ultimately did not find. Pete proved that even with a concussion, he's a badass and can take down multiple assailants with a gun. You guys went through what could only be described as a fiery rampage through the city streets as you were chased by multiple SUVs occupied by members of Joseph Uzma's crew, who were intent on not taking prisoners this time, but more on taking lives. Heinrich.
It's okay, I got kneecaps.
Yeah, Heinrich took care of that. You were ultimately on your way to the compound believed to belong to the Brotherhood of Fate when you were pulled over by a police officer who randomly tried to take your heads off with a shotgun. Once incapacitating him, you learned that he had been ordered to take that shot at you by his dispatcher and can only assume that those orders came down from much higher up the ladder, which is probably a very good indication that Uzma is using every resource at his disposal now to take you out of this game. You ultimately made it to this farm that strangely did not have anyone working the land. You went into this barn and discovered that the barn was a facade for an underground compound. When you broke into that compound, you found yourselves the ducks in a barrel with several individuals on an upper balcony ready to kill the three of you. And then you were introduced to an elderly black gentleman by the name of Michael Jones, who indicated that he was the spokesperson or the leader for his brothers, and then he welcomed you to the Brotherhood of Fate. And that is
I still have time to kneecap him,
So that is where last
Maybe later.
So that is where
Okay.
last week's game
Slow down.
concluded. Now, I'm going to remind all of you, you did spend some fate points last week, so I hope you were tracking that. Anyone who has fallen below free fate points at this point, you refresh it free at the beginning of today's game session. If you had more than one... if you had more than 3 fate points at the end of last game session, you still refresh it free and then you add those to your existing fate points. So, for example, if you had 2 fate points and you're refreshing it free, now you have 5. Okay? So,
I think I should have 4 fate points right now.
Well, as long as you were tracking them. So, we're going to jump right into this. Standing in front of you is an elderly black gentleman with a distinctly British accent who has introduced himself to the three of you as Michael Jones. He says that he is the spokesperson or the leader for his brothers, and he has welcomed you to the Brotherhood of Fate. You are still surrounded by no less than 20 to 25 individuals on a balcony surrounding the room above you, all pointing what appear to be high-powered assault rifles at you. Mr. Jones has indicated that there will be none of this here today. That anything that has transpired thus far is as fate would have it. You can now hear disapproving grumbling from the balcony above you. Some of the occupants are sort of lowering their weapons. Some of them still have them pointed at you, and there seems to be a certain amount of confusion on the balcony by the announcement that was just made by Mr. Jones. He looks at the three of you. He points at Heinrich. He says, Doctor. Points at Pete. Mr. Gallagher points at Maya. He says, Doctor. My name is Michael Jones. I am the spokesperson, or what you might consider the leader, for my brothers. Welcome to the Brotherhood of Fate. Will you please come with me? He steps aside to reveal a sliding door at the other end of the room that you're in. As he steps to the side and extends his hand to offer you the opportunity to walk in front of him, the sliding door opens and two more armed individuals step through the door and take parallel positions on both sides of the door. So,
We follow.
there you
What else
go.
is there to do?
All right. So,
We have no choice.
as you make your way to the end of the room and through the door, another individual comes running through the door. He is not armed. However, he does appear to be very emotionally distraught. He runs up through the door, stops dead in his tracks. He looks at Michael Jones and he says, Brother Jones, you cannot be serious after what these people have done. Think of Brother Thomas, left to die in the street, and they get a free pass. He looks at this individual. He says, as I have previously stated, Brother Isaiah, it is as the fates would have it, and there will be no more discussion revolving around this subject. The gentleman stands there. He looks at Mr. Jones for a moment. He looks at the three of you. He spits on the ground at the feet in front of Heinrich, and he says, No, Brother Jones, that's where you're wrong. This discussion is not over. And he turns around and he storms away.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Michael Jones turns around, he looks at you, and he says, You'll have to excuse Brother Thomas. He was romantically involved with one of the gentlemen who we sent to bring you here a couple of days ago at that library. That would be Brother Isaiah. So you can imagine how he must feel right now. But enough of that for the time being. Please come with me. We have much to talk about. And again, he offers you the opportunity to walk ahead of him in front and through the open sliding door that is currently flanked by the two armed individuals. So how do you want to handle this?
If you try to capture or kill me, I will hurt you. This guy, though, he'll kill you. So, now, meanwhile, okay, let's go.
Let's
So
go.
you walk through the door into what appears to be one hallway that either goes left or right. Jones walks through the door. He points to the left and he says, If you'll come this way, please. He steps in front of you and he walks down the hallway. As the last of you steps through the doors, the other two armed individuals who were flanking the door also step through the door and take up positions behind the three of you walking down the hallway. He looks over his shoulder at the three of you and he says, We have much to discuss. He says, I imagine you have many questions that you would like answers to. Please come with me. We'll sit down. We'll have something to eat, something to drink, and I will answer as many of your questions as I'm able to. He walks you down to the end of that hallway, and you emerge into another room, which appears to be a commissary room. There are several individuals sitting at benched tables in that room, eating food, drinking. It kind of has that cafeteria feel to it, where you walk into the room and there's a lot of, noise and conversation taking place in the room, but as you walk into the room falls deadly silent. Um, Jones walks into the room. He looks at everyone in the room and he says, "There's nothing to see here. Go on about your business, my brothers." And he ushers you to the right hand side of the room where you see another open door. As you walk through that door, you walk into a finely furnished room. Um, in the room, there's, a table, there's some chairs, there's a mini bar. This is a room that was set up for discussion and for, entertainment purposes as well. As the three of you walk into the room, Jones and the two armed individuals walk into the room behind you. The two armed individuals take flanking positions alongside the inside of the doorway, and then they close the door. So now in the room, it is the three of you, it is the two armed individuals standing by the door, and it is Michael Jones, who takes a seat at the table and invites you to join him at the table.
Sit down.
Saunter over,
Okay,
take a
so
seat.
you sit
What
down.
else will you do?
So he looks at the three of you as you sit down and he says, "I imagine that you have many questions that you would like answered. I invite you to ask the questions you have, and I will answer the ones that I can to the best of my ability. Before you can before you can begin asking questions, the door once again opens. Two individuals walk in holding serving trays. On the table, they place the two serving trays. One of the serving trays has what can only be described as bar food on it. It's, vegetables, pretzels, whatever you can think of. Just finger food for you to nibble on. The
I was
other,
expecting more class.
yeah. The other individual places on the table another serving tray. This serving tray has a bottle of whiskey on it and multiple glasses. Um,
Don't drink.
Jones reaches over, he takes a glass, he pours himself a drink of whiskey. He invites you to do the same, and then he stops for a minute and he says, "I imagine that you will be reluctant to partake of what we are offering you." He says, "In your position, I would be reluctant as well. To show you that no one in this room bears you any ill will." He takes the drink that he just poured and he drinks it. He puts it on the table, he pours another drink, he sits back in his chair, he again extends his hands and he says, "Please feel free to help yourselves."
I will.
And, all right,
I'll grab a drink.
all right, so Pete grabs a drink. He says, "I do invite you to ask any questions you may have, and again, as I said, I will answer them to the best of my ability."
Who's Ozma?
Joseph Uzma here, Heinrich, is
Hair.
a wealthy philanthropist. However, that is obviously not how Mr. Uzma got his start. As a matter of fact, Joseph Uzma came from a very poor family. He grew up on the streets. He learned the lessons that only the streets could teach him. Now, no one knows exactly how Uzma came by his first true injection of money. What we do know of him is that when he did come by that injection of money, he found a way to make his money grow. And as his money grew, so did his power. Now, we can only assume that there are supernatural components to how Uzma has come by his power. Funny enough, we have become aware that he has shown a diverse and distinct interest in ancient archaeology and dig sites, such as yours, Doctor. And he waves his hand at Maya. He says, Joseph Uzma has his hands in multiple dig sites all over the globe. Now, what we can conclude from what we've learned is that while he is in part funding these dig sites, he is looking for symbols of power that he believes will give him abilities that no mere mortal should possess, such as the
Mhm.
amulet of fate.
Right.
That's why does he want it?
Mr. Gallagher, we understand that you have a history in the Middle East. A history involving a gentleman, and he reaches into his pocket, he pulls out a black book, he flips through the book for a couple minutes. He goes, I believe the gentleman's name was Brian Landry. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is Mr. Landry not out for your head? Something to do with a
That's an
job?
understatement.
Yeah, something to do with a job gone wrong. Why does Mr. Uzma want the medallion that would give him control over his own fate? Well, let me pose this question to you, Mr. Gallagher. You have a bounty on your head for something that, in truth, you didn't do wrong. If you could rewrite your own history, if you could walk out of this room today and not have to worry about continuously looking over your shoulder for a stray bullet with your name on it, would you not want the power to do that?
That's true.
Then I believe you've answered your own question, he says as he takes another swig.
Do you have the medallion by any chance?
Well, Doctor, do you mind if I call you Maya?
Sure.
It's funny you ask that question because we were about to ask you the very same question. We were about to ask you if you knew the whereabouts of the medallion. Allow me,
No, we don't.
allow me to tell you a story.
Sure.
How many of you in this room consider yourself religious individuals?
Hmm.
So by your silence, I will take that as none of you. That's fine. I'm not here to judge. But I will tell you a story. Every religion, to a certain degree, regardless of what that religion is built upon a certain amount of fact around all of the mythology that somehow finds its way into that religion over time. I cannot say whether Jesus Christ was the Son of God. I cannot say that he was not. I cannot say that Jesus Christ died for our sins and did not rise on the third day, any more than I cannot say that, for example, Christians have it wrong. In fact, Judaism is the religion we should all be following. What I can tell you once again is that every religion is built on a certain amount of fact. In this particular case, let's look at Norse or Greek mythology. You are familiar with Norse mythology here, Heinrich, correct?
Yes.
What can you tell me of the three Norns of fate?
They tend to the tree. They water it with the waters of life, waters of fate.
And who are they?
Don't remember the names off the top of my head. The three sisters. One again. They're similar to the Greek mythology, where
Mhm.
the threads of fate. One you know
That is very
one
much,
spins, one
yes.
measures, and one cuts.
That is very much correct. So what I will tell you is specifically where we are interested as a brotherhood is we are interested in the Norse Norn that goes by the name of Skull. Some will refer to her in Greek mythology as Clotho. Do you know what she is responsible for? She ultimately is responsible for dictating the fate of us mere mortals. What if I were to tell you that in fact this individual is a real person? Would you believe me or would you think me crazy?
After everything we've seen, continue.
The best way I can explain this is the way it was once explained to me. Much like human beings who get tired of the lives they lead, we sometimes like to take a vacation to refresh and recharge. If these higher beings that, shall we say, exist on a different plane of existence were to exist, it stands to reason that an eternity of doing the same job over and over after hundreds of thousands of years, you would want to take a vacation too. But what if your powers, when you transcended these different levels of reality, were tethered to a device, a trinket, something that ultimately encompassed all of your abilities? For example, a medallion. What if, while you chose to walk among us mere mortals, all of your powers were tethered to that medallion? What if that medallion went missing? What if someone who had no earthly right possessing that power were to gain control of that power and reshape the very reality of fate as we know it? For my friends, I will tell you that is in fact true. You can call this lady whatever you wish, but she is the controller of our fates. And much like other beings of her kind, she has transcended her reality and she has come to Earth. And her abilities are tethered to the Medallion of Fate. A medallion which was lost in our realm of existence 67 years ago.
67.
67 years ago. A medallion which Joseph Uzma has been desperately searching for ever since he learned of its existence. The Brotherhood of Fate is charged with ensuring that this man never finds that medallion. For if he does, I promise all of you, it will be the end of the world as we know it. Michael Jones stands up for a moment. He says, "Will you please stay here? I will be back in a moment." And he exits the room. He leaves the two armed individuals in the room with you. As he exits the room, he stops at the doorway. He looks at the two of them. He says, "Hear my words, brothers. No harm is to come to these individuals." And he leaves the room and closes the door.
Mm-hmm.
So, you are now sitting in this room having just been told a story. Whether you choose to believe it or not is up to you, the three of you. You can discuss that amongst yourselves. But you have just been told this story, which you now have to digest. And Jones has got up and he has left the room and
Jones has left the building.
Jones has left the building, exactly. So
Mhm.
you've been left there to wait for his return.
Whatever.
So what do you
We're not
guys?
going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere. All right.
Hmm.
About 10 or 15 minutes go by before he comes back. He walks back into the room. He is holding a folder under his arm. That folder is spewing paper from every potential opening. He sits back down at the table and he says, "I have a question for the three of you. When did you first meet?"
My only recollection of meeting these two was when I woke up with Uzma screaming at me.
Maya,
I don't
wow.
remember seeing these two before.
Maya, do you remember meeting these two individuals before?
First time I remember is when I woke up in that warehouse to a bloody mess.
He nods his head.
And
He looks at Pete. He says, "And what about you, Mr. Gallagher?"
Same thing.
Same thing. Would you believe me if I told the three of you that you have known each other far longer than the last 48 hours? As a matter of fact, would
Wouldn't be
you believe
surprised.
me? Would you believe me if I told you that it was no coincidence that the three of you found yourselves in the employment of Mr. Joseph Uzma?
expand, please. We'd like to know.
He looks at Pete.
And why can't we remember?
Elucidate, not expand.
Yeah, he looks at Pete for a minute and he says, "Mr. Gallagher, would you mind telling us the story of Mr. Brian Landry and your situation in the Middle East?"
Just gonna say, well, to put it short form is that of that. Here comes back. I was working with Mr. Landry in the Middle East on a job, and on a protection job,
He
and
interrupts you for a minute. He
and the
says, "We're
person,
a dot-com billionaire, correct?"
yeah,
Please go on.
and so this person who we were protecting was killed, and he basically framed me as the assassin,
Hmm.
murderer on it.
And what is Mr. Landry doing these days?
I'm sure he's working somewhere.
He's working somewhere. Would it surprise you to know that the last known location of the Medallion of Fate that Joseph Uzma is looking for led Uzma to the individual that you were charged with protecting in Egypt?
That doesn't surprise me. So
Would it also surprise you to learn that the individual that hired Brian Landry to kill the person you were responsible for protecting was in fact Joseph Uzma?
at this point, no, I wouldn't be surprised.
Would it also surprise you to learn that the reason that you were brought to work for Joseph Uzma was because he's been pulling your strings, trying to find this medallion?
I believe that.
So allow me to expand and give you a little more information. You were charged with looking after a dot-com billionaire. Again, a man who pulled himself up from nothing. As I understand it, a very loved and well-respected individual who was happy to give back to his community. Any research that we have done on the individual that you were responsible for protecting indicates that by all reasoning and understanding, he was a fair and decent human being with very little to hide. However, the question that always came up for some individuals was, did he make his money honestly or did he have fate on his side? We will never know. What we do know is that through research and through confidential informants that we have working alongside Joseph Uzma, Uzma became aware or became to believe that this individual possessed the Medallion of Fate, and Uzma wanted it. So he hired Brian Landry to reclaim the medallion for him. And like a well trained individual that we understand Mr. Landry to be, he needed a fall guy. And I'm afraid to tell you, Mr. Gallagher, that that fall guy was you. However, what we also know is that after all of this went down in the Middle East, Uzma and Landry never found the medallion. He turns his attention to Maya and he says, I think that Maya may understand why they never found the medallion. Do you remember, Doctor?
Um, not sure. I do remember what you're referring to.
All right. So, I am going to invoke an aspect on you, Chris. I'm going to give you a fate
Okay.
point for this. Um,
Woohoo.
as he says to you, do you remember, Doctor? You begin to have the inklings of a memory come back to you.
Okay.
You remember sitting in a cafe speaking with an individual across from you at a table. Very much like the memory that you started to have a couple game sessions back. It is the same memory, except now this individual becomes a little clearer to you. You recognize as the fog begins to dissipate from this individual, the gentleman sitting across the table from you is Joseph Uzma. He tells you that he is hiring you for an assignment. The assignment he's hiring you for is a trip to the Middle East where he needs you to vet the authenticity of a, a trinket that he is prepared to pay substantial money for. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You did accept the job and you did go to the Middle East. Now, while in the Middle East, you were presented with this medallion. And the medallion looked very old and very ornate. It was a bronze looking medallion, and in the center was what can only be described as something that looked like a tree. Okay? You vetted it as
Okay.
being authentic. That's all you remember at this point. So I'm giving you a fate point for this. So keep track of your fate point, please.
Okay.
Okay? So
Right.
you explain what you remember to Jones and Heinrich and Pete. Okay? Now,
Okay. Yeah.
now, Jones looks at you and he says, "And is that all you can remember?"
At this point, yes.
Okay,
Everything else is foggy.
that's fine. He looks at
Hmm.
Heinrich and he says, "And you, doctor, do you remember anything?"
Nope.
All right. So we're gonna invoke an aspect on you as well. So take a fate point for this one. Okay. Um, you say no, but as you say no, you begin to have the twinkling of a memory come into your head. You are sitting there at a table in a cafe, very much like the memory that Maya just remembered, with a individual sitting across the table from you. The individual, as you focus more intently on him, is revealed to be Joseph Uzma. What you remember him saying to you is, "And you can guarantee me that once the chemicals dissipate, there will be no trace of the poison in his body, correct?" And then like that, you snap back to reality and you're back in the room with Pete and Maya and Michael Jones. So you can take that fate point, Heinrich.
Okay.
All right. That is a memory that you have just had. Now I'm going to ask you a question. Is that a memory that you want to share with the other individuals in the room at this point?
Doesn't make sense given my character's behavior and my character's past.
Perfect. And that's what I expected to hear you say. All right. So Jones looks at you and he says, "Do you remember anything about your interactions with these two individuals, Doctor?" And you said no. All right. He looks at the three of you. He says, "Wow, memory is a funny thing like fate. I imagine sooner or later things will begin to come back into focus for the three of you." He says, "Suffice to say, what you need to know is you may have woken up in a warehouse together, but I will assure all of you that this is not where you originally met." He says, I can tell you that the search is still on for this medallion. And as much as I can tell you that the search is still on for this medallion, I can tell you that the goddess that we are charged with serving is alive and very much well. They do not age the same way as we do. And I can tell you that Joseph Uzma will stop at nothing to either find her or the medallion. Now, while we may not be able to lay our hands on the medallion, we can very much lay our hands on her, as the Brotherhood is charged with her protection, and we have put her into hiding while this sorts itself out. In the meantime, I do invite you to be our guests while we try to make sense of how together we proceed forward from here. And make no mistake about it, much like fate, all of our survivals are intertwined for the time being. Because, again, if Uzma does acquire this medallion, and does acquire the ability to reshape fate as we know it, it will not be good for any of us. With that, he stands up from the table. He says, you are welcome to stay. I will have the gentleman behind you show you to appropriate accommodations. However, please be assured that you are not prisoners here, and you are welcome to come and go as you please. I look forward to another discussion with you soon. And he gets up and he walks out of the room. So, how do you folks want to proceed from here?
Those are the two who have direct dealings with this.
Well, aside from finger food, a decent meal and a hot shower would be nice to begin with.
Okay, so do you actually say that?
Mm, yes.
You understand you're still armed to the teeth,
I
right?
know.
Yep. So, the two gentlemen behind you say, that's fine, doctor. Come with us. We'll show you to a room. There will be a nice bed for you to rest in there. There will be a shower. And they look at the clock on they look at the clock on the wall. The clock on the wall currently reads 3:45 in the afternoon.
Okay.
They say to you, dinner is served promptly in the community room just outside these doors at 6:30. We invite you to join us for dinner. So do you follow them to a room?
Yes.
Not me. I'm content to be here in this room.
Okay. So that's fine. They have no
Because
issues.
they would have hurt. Yeah, they would have hurt us by now if they wanted to hurt us.
Yep. So Heinrich, they have no issue with you staying in the room if that's what you choose to do. Maya, they open the door and they, very much like Jones, they extend their arm in front of them, inviting you to leave the room first. And one of them is prepared to walk you to accommodations that have been prepared for you to clean up in, and if you want to take a nap, nap in. Do you follow him?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So that's exactly what he does. He takes you down out of the room into the general meeting area where, there are less people there now than there were when you originally went into that room.
Hmm.
He points you across the room through another door and down a couple sets of hallways. Um, and he ultimately takes you to a room. Exactly. Anthony's got it right. It's all of this. So he takes you to a room. Um, You go into the room. It's a finely decorated room. There's a bed on one side of the room. There's a desk and a chair. And then there's a private washroom that you can use to shower in. He reminds you that dinner will be served promptly at 6:30 back in the
Okay.
community area, and he leaves. So, give me a clever check, please, Maya.
Okay. Let's see. My clever is a 3. I rolled a 1. It's 4.
Surprisingly, you get absolutely no sense whatsoever that these people intend you any harm. Okay. Um, Given how your initial introduction was to these people, you were very on guard. But by the time you concluded your conversation with Jones and you were shown to this room, you feel very much at ease. Pete, you and Heinrich are still sitting in the room that Jones has just exited. Maya has just left on her own. Um, what do you want to do?
Oh, I'm going to fill my stuff out.
Looks like
I'm going
Heinrich
to
is asleep.
fill my stomach and have a drink. And I was going to say, what time of day is it?
So when Maya left the room, it was about 3:45. So we're gonna say that it's 3:45. Maya has just
Okay.
left and been shown to her room.
I'm going to do the same. I'm going to ask for a place to clean up. Well, because I probably heard them talk about coming back at 6:30 for dinner.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do the same.
Yeah. So you go to stand up out of the chair, and what I need you to do, please, is give me a quick row as you're standing up, Pete, and then subtract
I can
one.
feel that.
Yeah, subtract 1 from it for the concussion that you're suffering.
Open that up here. Quick roll, you said?
Yep.
Okay. Ooh, a horrible. Rolled a -3 with my 3,
Okay, that's
and the
fine.
a -1.
Okay, so you go to
That's
stand
the
up.
first horrible one.
That's all right. So you go to stand up, and as you stand up, you stagger sideways and fall back into the chair, still feeling the effects of the concussion that you suffered a couple nights ago. The one gentleman still in the room looks at you and he says, "Looks like you're not feeling very well." He says, "If you'd like, we can take you to see the doc and see if the doc can do anything to help you out with what ails you."
Sounds like a
Concussion.
good idea.
Well, I could always give you another shot.
Yeah. Okay, so
You say shot or shit?
before this is over, it could be both. Anyways,
The answer is yes, but that's another matter entirely.
all right.
I'm carrying
So,
a pillow with me.
all right. So to be clear, are you gonna go see their doctor? So are you gonna go see? You're gonna go see their doctor, Pete? Yep. Okay. So he walks over. He puts his hand under your elbow. He helps you up out of the seat. Give me a clever roll, please, Pete.
-1.
You cannot be sure about his intentions, so you need to decide whether you're going to let him help you up out of the seat or not. Or you can
Well,
spend,
considering how bad
yeah,
I'm going to spend a fate point.
sure.
I'm going to re-roll that. My clever. 1.
Okay. This time you get no sense whatsoever of any ill intent from him as he puts his arm underneath your elbow. He lets the gun that he was holding in the other hand flop to his side. He helps you up out of the chair and he says, "Come on, I'll take you down to see the doctor."
Sounds good.
Okay. Heinrich, on the way out of the room, he stops as he's helping Pete through the door. He says, "Doctor," he says, "you're welcome to stay here, or otherwise, you are welcome, and we will show you to a room where you can rest, relax, and clean up in. I will have one of our brothers come back to see you in a few minutes." And he exits the room with Pete. So Pete, he helps you across the community area. He takes you down a series of hallways to a open door in one hallway. You step into that room, and it seems to be a fairly well-stocked medical clinic. Okay. You walk into the room. There's a elderly gentleman standing there, kind of kind of pudgy looking. He looks like he's probably in his late 50s, early 60s. He's got little to no hair left on the top of his head. He looks at the guy bringing you into the room and he says, "Brother Samuels, what do we have here?" And the gentleman bringing you into the room explains who you are and explains that there seems to be something wrong with you. He says, "My name is Dr. Sims," and he says, I'm the doctor for the Brotherhood." He says, "Please, Mr. Gallagher, sit down and let's see if we can figure out what's wrong with you." Do you sit down? Yeah. Okay, so you sit down. He does a physical on you just to get an idea of what's going on. He ultimately concludes that yes, you are suffering from a concussion. He prescribes you, you know, some not even antibiotics so much, but he basically says to you, "Here, take two of these, call me in the morning," kind of thing. And he tosses some Tylenol into your hand. He says, "Unfortunately," he says, "there's very little that we can offer you here um, other than rest and relaxation to help you overcome the effects of this." But he says, "I would recommend that you take it easy for as long as possible." Um,
Sounds good.
the um, the brother that brought you into the room comes back over, and he offers to show you to a room where you can relax and clean up. Do you want to take him up on that offer?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So again, he takes you down a series of corridors, ultimately to a room. He shows you into the room and then he departs. Now, in the room, it is the same layout as the room that Maya's in. So it's a bed on one side of the room, a desk and chair, and then a private washroom with three-piece settings. So you have the toilet, the sink, and the shower. Heinrich, you are sitting in this room on your own. There's some finger food there and there's some booze there. What do you want to do at this point?
I'm trying to decide what to do
Okay.
because ultimately, yeah, I mean, this doesn't make sense. They left us armed to the teeth
Hmm.
in the middle of their stronghold.
Yep. Yep. You are fully armed. They did not ask you to turn in any weapons whatsoever. They've left you fully armed.
Great. Uzma's gonna attack and kill off half the people. No problem. So that means that again, time to go wandering.
All
Since
right.
those two jokers are not like doing anything other than like walking along like sheep, I might as well actually get some work done.
Sure.
So go out, check out the calf.
Okay.
Take a look around.
So, as you exit the room into the cafeteria or community room, a gentleman comes walking across the room from the other side of the room. He says, "Ah, doctor," he says, "I was just on my way to see you." He says, "Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Brother McNeil." He says, "I've been sent here to facilitate your arrival. I'm here to show you around and familiarize you with the layout of our facility. How can I help you?"
I want to go back to I want to go back to my vehicle.
You want to go back to your vehicle? That's fair. Absolutely. He reaches down, he pulls a walkie-talkie off of his hip, and he says into the walkie-talkie, he says, "Yep, please be advised. The doctor that's in the private meeting room has requested to go back to his vehicle. I will be showing him out of the facility now. The only thing that comes back across the radio is, thank you for the update." And he extends his arm in front of you. However, he is not directing you back the way you came. He is directing you to the opposite hallway from where you came. He says, "I will show you a faster route back to your vehicle, doctor." And then he offers you the opportunity to walk in front of him.
To you.
As you wish, and he steps in front of you and he proceeds to walk down a hallway. Now, after about 5 minutes of dipsy doodling down different hallways and past different rooms and areas, you come to a hallway that has a door at one end of it. He walks to the end of the hallway. He opens the door. On the other side of the door is what can only be described as metal stairs leading up to the surface. He looks at you. He says, "This is the emergency exit to exit the compound. It emerges on the other side of the farmhouse, and it puts you about 50 feet closer to where you parked your vehicle." And then he offers you the opportunity to walk in front of him.
After you.
He says, "No, I'm afraid you misunderstand, doctor." He said, "I'm not leaving the facility." He said, "You are welcome to return to your vehicle if you wish. When you want to regain access to the facility, enter the facility the same way you and your friends entered the first time around, but on the keypad, enter 0014, and you will be admitted access back into the facility." And then he once again extends his hand, offering you the opportunity to go up the stairs.
Why can't you leave?
Give me a clever roll.
Two.
You get no sense that he's screwing with you whatsoever. He seems very sincere in everything he's saying. When you ask him why he cannot leave, he says, "Because I do have other responsibilities to my brothers."
Why can't I come through this door?
"This door is intended for emergency exits only, doctor." He says, "The only reason I've shown you this exit is because I figured it would save you time getting back to your vehicle. It is not an exit that we are supposed to be using on a regular basis. But the reality is, for where you want to go, it puts you closer to where you want to go." Again,
All right.
you get no sense that he's screwing or toying with you. Everything that he's saying seems very upfront and sincere to you.
Okay. Well, go back to the car.
Okay, so you go up about 4 flights of stairs, and you ultimately emerge on the other side of the farmhouse. So picture this: if the farmhouse is in the center and the barn is over next to the farmhouse on the right. You have emerged off to the left behind the farmhouse, but um, this Brother McNeil was absolutely right in what he said. It has put you 40 to 50 feet closer to your vehicle than you would have had to cover had you come out the other exit. So you're back on the surface. Again, very much like before when you pulled up to the compound, it seems like there's no one around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Well,
what do you want to
the
do?
biggest problem right now that we have is that the vehicle is in plain sight.
Hmm.
So go back to the barn, open the barn door,
Yep.
so that I can drive the car into there and basically close the barn door behind it.
Okay, so it's done. You've parked the car in the barn.
Okay.
Okay.
Then head down,
Okay.
follow the path again.
Yep. You get to the keypad. Do you remember what the key code
Zero
is?
zero one four.
Yep. So you enter it, and then you hear, "How can I help you? Who is this?"
The doctor.
Ah, give me 1 second. Goes dead for a minute. You stand there for about 15 seconds, and then you hear a click, and then the door in front of you goes zip and opens up.
Okay.
Okay. So you can go back in.
Okay. Go back in.
Okay. So you go back in. Again, you go down that hallway and you come back out into that room that had that balcony around the top of it. Okay. When you walk into that room, you see something that you hadn't seen the first time. There is the door in front of you that you initially went through when Jones invited you to follow him. But on the opposite side of the room now, there is an open door with a yellowish light glowing from the door.
Obviously, that's where I'm going to go.
Okay. So you walk into that room, and what you realize you've just walked into is a library looking room. So there's some tables and chairs in the room. There's bookshelves full of different books, things like that. And then on the other end of the room, there's another open door that leads into a hallway.
Mm-hmm.
When you walk into that room, you see several individuals sitting at tables, all members of the Brotherhood of Fate. Some of them are just sitting there talking. Some of them seem to be intently focused on whatever literature they have taken off of the bookshelf that they are reading. Now, give me a clever roll, please, Heinrich.
5.
Okay. There is no mistaking what happens when you walk into this room. You walk into this room and suddenly you feel like all of the eyes in that room are sternly focused on you. One individual gets up from the other side of the room, walks across the room to you, stops just in front of you, and then proceeds to spit right on your foot. You recognize this individual immediately as being Brother Thomas, the individual who put up a very large fuss about the fact that the three of you were not immediately executed when you first arrived. He looks at you, he says, "Fuck you. You have a lot of nerve." And while Brother Jones may believe that he speaks for all of us in this matter, I can assure you he doesn't speak for all of us. He then turns around.
No, before he does that,
Yep.
let me hit my. I want to do something back.
Go ahead.
Fingers up his nose and throw him over my shoulder.
Okay. So, this is going to be combat, okay?
Yep.
Give me a quick roll, please.
3.
Nope, does not work. You go to do it, he grabs your fingers and he twists them sideways, flipping you feet over head. Before you know it, you are laying on your back, staring up at the lights. He looks at you, he goes, "You should never have been allowed to live." And then he kicks you in
Shoot
the...
him
You're going to shoot him.
in the knee.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm on the ground. I got nothing better to do.
You absolutely are. You're more than welcome to take that shot. It's a combat roll. Give me a quick roll.
Roll. Quick.
Yep.
Quick plus 0. 2.
Nope, not this time. You go to reach for your gun, and before you can do it, several other members of the Brotherhood that are sitting in that room all throw their chairs backwards. And give me a clever roll.
3.
Okay. You look around you. Several of them have handguns pointed at you. The individual who just tossed you to the ground looks down at you and he says, "I think you should leave."
I think you should leave.
He says, "I don't care if you leave this room right now. Better yet, leave this facility and never come back." But he said, "Right now, you should leave." So, Heinrich, you're the only one in the room. You've got at least 7 people pointing handguns at you. How do you want to play this? Do you want to take his advice, get up and exit the room, or do you really want to push your luck here?
Well, let's see. What would I have in my doctor bag? Yeah. So in my doctor bag,
Yep.
I'd like to, I'm assuming I'm still in contact with my doctor bag.
So they did not take anything off you. It was Jones' insistence that you be made to feel welcome, and he decided that one of the ways of making you feel welcome would be to not require you to turn in any of your belongings. So yes, right now you still have whatever you have on you.
Okay. Excellent. Open my doctor bag slowly.
Okay.
Reach inside for a bag of jelly babies.
Okay.
I like jelly babies, actually. They're actually really good.
That's
Wonderful
fine.
English product.
So you pull out your jelly babies.
Eat 2 pieces.
Okay.
Offer anyone else in the room a jelly baby.
They look at you in disgust.
Good. Okay. And then the next thing to do is reach into my bag. And I should have a little canister. Basically, it's a clear gas that would do the exact same thing to these gentlemen as what happened to good old Pete, except in about 15 minutes.
Okay, so you are going to spend a fate point on this one.
Yes, I will spend a fate point on this.
I am going to also consider... Yeah, no, I'm not going to consider this combat, but I am going to advise you up front that you should find a way to disperse this gas in such a way that they will not see you do it, so that they cannot immediately view this.
Oh no, they'll know it'll be me eventually, but it's just, again, well, if they didn't want the jelly babies, I'll put it back in my bag and hit the canister the moment my hand goes in there.
So you're not.
They won't know.
So you're not taking it out of the bag.
No, don't have to.
So explain to me how this is not going to affect you as well.
The jelly babies.
Okay, fine. That's fine. So then you've done it. You
Okay.
you can spend the fate point, which
Okay.
you can deduct.
I'm now
So
down to 4.
in
I
that
sp-
in the bag your hand went to put the jelly babies back, you quickly drop the trigger on this clear vapor that evaporates into the immediate vicinity of the room you're in. You are, however, still laying on the ground, and you do still have this guy standing over you and several people pointing guns at you. So he's in.
Well, at this point, I'm just gonna stay down, take a nap. This is one of those moments where, remember, um, when you're out in public, walking, nonchalantly, being cool, right? The bus is there. You decide you're gonna race for the bus. You race for the bus, put one foot on the step, and you flip.
Okay,
And you take a flying flip, you'll land on your ass.
okay.
Now,
So
at that point, you have two choices. You can either A, get up real quick and pretend it didn't happen, or B, just stay down.
okay, so you're gonna just stay down.
Yes.
Okay. Give me a clever roll, please.
Clever plus 1, 4.
About 5 minutes has elapsed now since Brother Thomas gave you a lesson in hand-to-hand combat. You are still laying on your back. You realize that 5 minutes has elapsed, and you realize that you still have every single person in that room that initially pulled a gun on you still pointing those guns at you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Are you going to take any action at this point, or are you still going to
Nope.
lay?
I told you, I'm taking a nap.
You're taking a nap. Okay. Okay. Give me one more clever roll, please.
3 plus 1, 4.
Okay. You quite literally did take a nap. You nod off on the floor. By the time you wake up, it is 6:15 in the evening. What you do wake up to, you feel kind of gross, like people have been spitting on you while you've been asleep. Um, sure as hell, they have been. As they got up and walked out of that room after realizing you'd fallen asleep, every one of them decided to show their disdain for you by horking on you.
Excellent.
So,
So, what I will do with that, by the way, open up the doctor's bag
yep,
and take a sample of all of it
that's fine.
and put it into a sample jar.
Done. So you've done that. Okay. In the meantime, Pete and Maya. Um, it has now been about 2 hours since you were originally shown to your rooms. You were given ample time to sit down and take a nap, have a shower, do whatever you want to do. Um, other than resting and getting cleaned up, have you done anything else with this time? So Maya's saying no. What about you, Pete?
Oh.
No?
Nothing.
Okay. So it's about six.
I'm ready to go down.
Yep.
I'm ready to go to head back down and find Heinrich. And
Okay. So it's about
Yeah, because we're supposed to go down for 6:30 for dinner or
6:30.
something.
Exactly. So it's about 6:15. You two are sitting in your rooms. Excuse me. And then you hear the chiming of what can only be described as a digital school bell, followed by an announcement that comes over a speaker that is in your rooms. Attention, brothers. Please be advised it is 6:15. Dinner will be served promptly in the community room in 15 minutes. Thank you. So, it will take you approximately 10 minutes to walk to that room from your rooms that you're in right now, which will put you there at approximately 6:25. Do you want to be early? Do you want to be on time? Or do you want to be fashionably late?
I'll be on time.
Okay.
Early.
All right. So, Maya, you show up in this cafeteria-like setting at 6:25. As you walk into the room, there are several people seated at tables there. There is
Hmm.
a lot of discussion taking place as you walk into the room. When you walk into the room, though, you immediately realize that just like before, it has gone strangely silent. Now, you're standing there, there's people seated at tables everywhere, and then one gentleman stands up and starts waving their arms. Give me a clever roll, please.
Okay, so I rolled a 2, my clever is 3, so it's 5.
Fantastic. So the person waving their arms is there trying to get your attention specifically.
Okay.
Okay? They're on the other end of the room at one table. So, how do you want to handle this?
Um, First of all, I'm going to survey the room to see if Pete or Heinrich are around.
Not at this
Uh,
not at this point.
I know Pete is in, so they're not there. So I will cautiously make my way over
Okay.
to that table to see what's up with this guy.
Okay. So you make your way to the table. The gentleman is sitting at the table. He invites you to sit down and he introduces
Okay.
himself as Brother Timothy. He says, Doctor, my name is Brother Timothy. I am the executive aide to Brother Jones. This is where Brother Jones will be partaking in this evening's meal, and he invites you and your friends to join him for dinner.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
How
So
long have you known Brother Jones?
I have been a brother with the Brotherhood of Fate for 11 years. I was brought into the Brotherhood by my father. You will find, Doctor, that many of the brothers here are long-standing members with a long pedigree of family that have served the order before them. So, in the meantime, about 5 minutes goes by, and then Pete emerges into the room. Pete, so you don't know what's going on. Actually, let's do this. Give me a clever roll, please, Pete.
A -1.
-1. Okay. Um, you woke up expecting to feel the effects of that concussion. Um, you're still not completely, um, how shall I say this? You're not completely stable on your feet, but strangely enough, the nap that you just took is probably the best rest you've got in the last, well, I'd say month. Like, strangely, you just feel like the last 90 minutes to 2 hours was the best night's rest you've had in forever. So you're not feeling stable, but you're feeling rested. So you enter the cafeteria area. You enter the room. You see a whole bunch of people seated at tables. In one corner of the room, you can make out Maya sitting with another individual.
I'm going to go sit over there with him.
Okay. So Maya, as you and the brother you've just been introduced to are having a discussion about him and his history with the Brotherhood, Pete comes and sits down at the table with you. Heinrich, so you woke up in the library at 6:15, covered in spit. You heard a bell go off. That's actually what woke you up, along with a message indicating that dinner was going to be served promptly in 15 minutes. What do you do at this point? Are you going to go to dinner the way you are? Um, are you going to go to dinner at all? What is it you plan to do?
Oh, I'm going to go through that door.
Okay. So the door on the other end of the room leads into a hallway. You are actually standing at one end of the hallway. There is no way to go on your left hand side. When you turn right and walk down that hallway, it brings you out into the cafeteria area where you immediately see Maya and Pete just off to your right hand side having a sitting at a table with another individual.
Look for a washroom.
Okay, there is a washroom directly across from where they're sitting on the left-hand side of you.
Okay, go to the washroom.
Okay, you go to the washroom.
Get cleaned up.
Okay, so I would say getting cleaned up will take you approximately 5 minutes.
Do I?
So
Is there anyone else in the washroom with me?
there was, but as soon as you came in, they were standing at the basin washing their hands. They took one look at you, gave you a dirty look, and walked out without saying a word. You do not immediately recognize them. So that's my way of saying they were not one of the individuals in the library.
Mm-hmm. Oh, let's see. What else do I need? Soap.
There,
So grab. Is it the liquid soap dispenser or is it the? Is it actual bar soap?
you tell me.
Liquid soap.
Done.
Okay. See if there's a jug of it.
No, it's hand dispensers on the wall. There's no extra cleaning supplies in the washroom.
That's not a good washroom. Any mothballs? Or sorry, not mothballs. The balls that are in the urinals.
Um, there is no extra cleaning supplies in that washroom. There is not to, there is not to say that what you're asking for isn't there, but they're sitting in urinals.
That's fine.
Fine.
Okay.
You?
Of course it's you. But how else are you going to make napalm,
Now,
explosives?
actually, I need you to do me a favor, though. We're going to hit the rewind button for a minute, okay? As you walk into this bathroom, I need you to give me a clever row, please.
Clever roll. 3.
Okay. As you walk into this bathroom, there is an individual standing there at the sink. He is washing his hands. He stops, he looks at you, he gives you a dirty look, but you realize that he's kind of standing there like this. And then he walks out of the room. After he leaves, you stop for a minute, you take a deep breath, and you realize that that bathroom reeks of shit. Like we are talking explosive diarrhea. It's like a shit bomb went off in that bathroom recently.
How crass.
Compliments of you know who.
Wow, the only
Don't know what you're
thing.
talking about.
So yeah, yeah. Yeah. There's just something foul smelling in that bathroom, and it's not necessarily you.
I hope it's not me.
All right, so there is soap in that bathroom. There are urinal cakes in that bathroom sitting in the urinals. So walk us
Okay.
through what you're doing.
Well, take all of it.
Okay,
Obviously the urinal cakes have to wash them off.
fine.
So, wash off the urinal cakes. Take the soap, toss them in my doctor's bag. I'll need them later to make napalm.
Okay, but how are you taking the soap? They're in dispensers. Like they're in wall-mounted hand dispensers.
Yeah, but wall-mounted hand dispensers, you have to be able to open them to be
Yes.
able to refill them.
So what are you putting the soap in?
No, you take the container out.
You're taking the whole container with nothing on top of it to prevent it from spilling all over your bag.
Okay, so let me take a step back here. All right. Typically, these containers, they'll have it's to have a unit, and the reason why they have it as a unit is to prevent other people from actually, like, stealing soap. So what I'm taking is the unit, the plastic unit inside a holder.
Okay, that's fine. You take the soap. You do you take it from all the dispensers?
Yep, that should be, a unit, let's say about this big each. That should
That's
fit easily in my
fine.
bag.
Fine. Document it as inventory on your character sheet. You'll need to remember this for later.
Yep.
Okay. So you scooped up the nasty looking urinal cakes and you stow all the soap in the bathroom. What next?
Wash off the cakes. I need to do that first.
Yep. So you've done that.
Um, okay, and then let's see. I should probably have some sample containers or Ziploc bags or sample bags inside my doctor's bag. So that's where the cakes go.
Okay. Done.
Okay, and then wash my hands
Okay.
because you always have to wash your hands.
Are you washing
Clean
it
up.
with? Are you washing it with soap?
Of course, I have it right here.
Okay.
I took the whole batch.
That's fine. So you got cleaned up.
Okay. Let's see. Also, I'll need the sample jars from the sample jars that I had for all the spit because I'll need to extract DNA from that.
That's
So
fine. Yep. You've already.
I'll do that in a bit.
Yep. Those were in your bag.
Okay. All right. Then I can leave.
Okay. So you
I'm done.
exit. You exit the bathroom. By the time you exit the bathroom, seated at the table across from the bathroom is Pete, Maya, a person that you don't recognize, and coming down the center of the row of two tables, approaching you, is Michael Jones, and he takes a seat at the table with Pete and Maya. So Pete and Maya, you're sitting at the table. Jones comes and sits down at the table. He looks at the two of you. He says, "Good evening." He says, "I must say that you look relaxed and refreshed, and I hope you're ready for dinner." He looks up.
Yep, sounds good.
He sees Heinrich exit the bathroom. Heinrich, you see him do this, inviting you to come over and take a seat at the table.
Nothing better to do.
Okay, so the three of you go and you sit down at the table. Now, he says, "I hope you all have had a chance to decompress." He says, "We're going to have a lovely dinner this evening that has been prepared by our chef." Um, he then, um, what he does is he stands up, and this seems ridiculous, but he stands up. He says, "Good evening, brothers." He says, "It is time to eat." And he does this. And from the other side of the room, trays get rolled in on dollies, and a tray is placed in front of every individual. On the trays are roasted duck, rice, potatoes, corn, and um, a glass of wine. He invites you to begin eating, and then he sits down and he proceeds to eat himself.
No vegetables. This is terrible.
Yeah, wow.
I thought this was supposed to be
Salad.
4-star. What's going on?
All right. So during dinner, he casually asks the three of you if you remember anything else at this time. So, it's at that point that he asks that question, Heinrich, that you begin to have another memory, and you will earn another fate point for this. So, Heinrich,
Man, I used one fate point to
yep,
give an explosion to all those people, and now I get another fate point. This is good. All
yep.
right, I can live with this.
So, Heinrich, what you remember as you're sitting there eating and, you know, paying attention to what's going on is you remember Joseph Uzma asking you if there would be any trace of the poison once it had dispersed from the body. Your answer to that question was no. And Uzma says, good. He said, because I will be putting you and your chemicals on a plane bound for the Middle East tomorrow. And this cannot be traced back to me. Of course, in return, Doctor, it will be the usual fee that we have agreed upon previously. And that's all you remember. So you can take that fate point. Um, Pete, while you're sitting there eating dinner, when Jones asks you this question, you also begin to remember something, and you will earn a fate point for this. You are sitting in a hotel room in what you believe is somewhere in the Middle East. A individual knocks on your room door. You open the door and you recognize the individual as being your friend, Brian Landry. He looks at you and he says, this is going to be a walk in the park. Trust me, as he lightly slaps you across the chest with the back of his hand. He says, man, I'm telling you, you will thank me for this one day. People would kill for the opportunity I'm presenting you with. And like that, you snap back to the dinner you're having. So take your fate point. Maya, you're sitting there. Jones asks you if you remember anything else. You initially said no. However, you then actually begin to remember something. What you remember is, and you can't be sure about this, you have this feeling like you're in a room somewhere in the Middle East, okay? And
Mhm.
you're talking to someone, and what you remember them saying is, "Here, take this. They can never get their hands on this. It's not just my life that depends on it, it's your life and everyone else's life as well." And Maya, you take a fate point for that memory and you snap back to reality. And Jones says,
Uh,
so,
Hold on. Do I remember the item?
nope,
Whatever they gave me?
nope. All you
Okay.
remember is someone gave you something and told you to guard it like your life depends on it, because not only does your life depend on it, but so does everyone else's. And like that, you snap back to the meal that you're having with Heinrich, Pete, Jones, and Jones' lackey. Okay?
All right.
So The rest of the evening, guys, goes off without a hitch. Jones uh, tries to entertain you with the history of the Brotherhood of Fate and the fact that they have been an order that has been around for 67 years, that several members of the Brotherhood have their roots from previous family members in the Brotherhood. That they are charged with the responsibility of um, protecting what he keeps referring to as the goddess of fate. Okay? He's referred to her by different names throughout the evening. He's referred to her as Clotho. He's referred to her as Skull. Um, he dabbles back and forth into different names from different forms of mythology that have their roots in the belief that a deity of a higher power controls the fate of humanity as a whole. Now, what you need to also bear in mind is that throughout the evening, as he's telling you this story, he is generously partaking in the wine that keeps being brought to the table. What started out with, a glass of wine with dinner led into bottles and bottles of wine being brought to the various tables throughout the evening. And you don't need to make a clever row for this one. All of you have noticed that throughout the evening, one thing that the brothers of the Brotherhood of Fate are really good at is drinking in excess. Okay? Um, by the time dinner is over with and people have started to gradually exit this community room, um, Pete, give me a clever roll, please.
Three.
Okay, you are very aware that several hours has gone by. Now, at first, you're not sure of how many hours, but then you run a quick piece of math in your head and you realize that it's got to be at least 11 o'clock in the evening by this point. Okay? Um, Maya, give me a clever roll, please.
Oh wow. I got a 3. I'm at 6.
Okay, how many drinks have you had tonight, Maya?
2.
Okay, so you've been nursing your drink casually through fear of tying one on. And you realize as you stare at the remnants of the second drink at the bottom of your glass that it's very quiet around you other than the ramblings of Jones. You look up around you and you realize that other than the five of you, the five being you, Heinrich, Pete, Jones, and Jones' assistant,
Hmm.
everyone else has exited this room. Now, um, Heinrich, what are you doing during all this? Because you've already established that you weren't drinking. So
Hmm.
are you just sitting there listening to the ramblings of what seems like a crazy man, or
I'll just listen.
okay? So, um, Jones continues to ramble about everything, his history in the UK before immigrating across the sea, the fact that uh, this medallion cannot be allowed to fall into Uzma's hands. How important it is that you understand that the fate of both the Brotherhood and yourselves are intermingled together. And then he suddenly stops and he goes, "Oh my, look at me." He goes, "It's quite late." And he stands up and he's sort of staggering on his feet. He's had a little too much to drink. His aide stands up and he assists him by supporting him. Jones looks at the three of you and he says, "Forgive me for occupying your evening." He says, "It's not very often that I enjoy myself quite the way I have today. I bid you all a good evening." And then he turns to leave. At which point his aide looks at you. He says, "Breakfast will be served tomorrow morning, promptly at 7:30. Afterwards, Brother Jones has asked that you meet him once again in the meeting room." He points to the room across the cafeteria where you originally sat down to talk with Jones. And he says, "After breakfast, we really will need to sit down and formulate our plans to move forward from here." And with that,
So
he wishes you all a good evening, and he escorts Jones by, supporting him out of the room, and they disappear into the darkness, leaving the three of you to sit there at the table on your own. So, with that, I'm gonna ask, do you do anything else, or are you going to call it an evening?
I'm going to call it an evening.
Okay. Um, Maya, are you doing anything else, or are you calling it an evening?
I'm gonna call it an evening.
Oh,
Are we expecting a surprise attack, maybe?
well, if you were, I
I
wouldn't.
am.
If you were, I wouldn't tell you. Let me put it to you that way. Having said that, Maya and Pete, you both stand up and you start to head towards your bedrooms, leaving Heinrich sitting there at the table. Now, Heinrich, as Maya and Pete stand up to leave, um, Jones's aide comes back into the room and he goes, "Oh my," he goes, "Brother Jones just informed me, doctor," pointing at Heinrich, he says, "we don't believe that you've been assigned a room as of yet. We would be happy to show you to a room where you can rest and relax for the remainder of the evening. If you would like, I can have one of our brothers escort you there now."
I'm all right.
Okay. "As you wish." And he turns around and he leaves. So Maya and Pete, you're going to make your way back to your rooms. Are either of you going to offer to have Heinrich bunk in with you this evening, or are you going to leave Heinrich to his own devices in the cafeteria?
So I ask you, what are you going to do then? You guys sneak around?
Of course I am.
Okay.
Please.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Can I join you and then I can go back
Oh, sure.
whenever?
Now you want to join me in sneaking around.
Yes,
Tell them
yes.
I'll let you know where my room is, just in case you're running back to hide during the night.
All right.
Uh huh.
All right. So, guys, this is where we're going to wrap this game session of As Fate Would Have It. You are at the tail end of day number 2 now. You are in the facility or the compound of the Brotherhood of Fate, who are sort of divided on how they feel about the three of you right now. Although their leadership says that they're accepting that whatever happened was in fate's hands. Certain members don't seem to share that belief. It is now 11:30 in the evening. The three of you, as I understand it, have decided that you are going to sneak around the compound to see if you can learn anything else. And that is where we will pick up next game session. It is important to note that we will not be holding a game session next week. Our next game session will be in 2 weeks. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching as fate would have it here on the CanGeek Games and Collectibles YouTube channel and the CanGeek Facebook page. Wherever you may be watching this video from, uh, anywhere in the world with this COVID crap going on, stay safe, stay healthy, and in the meantime, ciao for now.